Spartacus begins in Thrace, a borderland where Rome meets the wild edge of the Balkans and the Black Sea. It is a place of hard winters, raids, and shifting loyalties where a man can learn endurance before he ever learns politics. Roman writers later hint he served with Roman forces for a time, which would explain how he learned the cadence of marching and the logic of the camp. Then something snaps. It could be a refusal to obey, a desertion, a fight with an officer, a crime that Rome calls order and he calls survival. He runs, he is hunted, and the chain closes with the calm efficiency of an empire. In a world built on conquest, a captured man becomes property with paperwork, and his past is reduced to a sale price. He is sold south into Italy toward Capua, a city close enough to Rome's roads to feed the market for spectacle. Crowds there buy emotion like bread, fear and excitement measured in cheers and wagers. At the school of Lentulus Batiatus, pain is training, discipline is profit, and death is a product that must look convincing. A gladiator's life is routine that never softens. You eat when told, sleep when allowed, and fight when scheduled, always under eyes that count you like tools. Training turns men into controlled violence, not to free them, but to make them valuable. And you learn to watch everything, the keys, the guards, the gates, and the seconds when attention drifts. He meets other men shaped by other wars. Crixus the Gaul, Winemas, and many more whose names do not survive the record because history keeps the winners and forgets the bruised. Different tongues, same hunger, same scars, the same quiet calculation. In the yard they understand each other without speeches because pain teaches a common language. In 73 BCE, a decision becomes a plan, not a dream, but a practical map of a way out. Revolts start small because small is what survives the first hour, and because hope is fragile under walls. They pick a moment when routine is loud and minds are dull, and they strike where control is weakest, not where it is proudest. They do not escape with legendary swords. They escape with kitchen tools and whatever fits a fist. Knives, spits, cleavers, anything that can cut a path through a doorway becomes a weapon. The first blood is not heroic, it is desperate, and it opens the door long enough for the next step. They seize real weapons from wagons and armories, steel that changes everything in minutes. Now, the balance shifts because Rome expects obedience, not momentum, not men who keep moving after the first alarm. A slave with a blade is still hunted, but now he is a moving danger, and danger spreads like fire through dry fields. They run before Rome understands what happened, and the news chases them like smoke along the roads. Food is taken, clothing is taken, horses are taken, because survival is the first commandment of a rebel column. Their numbers grow fast because fear travels, and because the enslaved do not need speeches to recognize a chance. They climb Mount Vesuvius, not as symbol but as shield, steep ground that turns Roman numbers into nothing. Narrow paths and rough slopes make discipline harder for those who rely on lines and orders. Rome sends a small force and calls it a cleanup job, because Rome is used to putting down slave troubles like putting out sparks. One Roman commander, often named Glaber in later accounts, blocks the obvious descent and assumes the mountain is a cage. Spartacus studies the cliff, the vines, the night, and the blind side no patrol bothers to watch. He chooses what Rome forgot to guard, because Rome thinks like an owner, not like a prisoner. They slide down the steep side on makeshift ropes, silent and fast, and the air itself feels like a weapon. Then they strike from behind, and the Roman camp folds in panic, tents collapsing into confusion, men waking into blades. The first victory tastes unreal, then it tastes possible, and possibility is a stronger fuel than bread. Word moves faster than soldiers, and hunger recruits faster than ideology ever could. Farm slaves, herdsmen, miners, and the debt-crushed poor drift toward the camp, drawn by the rumor that Rome can be hit and made to stumble. A new army forms from need, not from banners, and it carries every kind of anger, not only one. An army needs food every hour and every day, and starvation can defeat what swords cannot. They raid estates and storehouses, not for luxury, but for survival, and each wagon of grain is a day of life. Spartacus learns discipline is the line between an army and a mob, because a mob burns itself out, but an army can endure. Rome sends more men, still not enough and still too confident, because the Senate first treats this as policing. Detachments arrive expecting terrified runaways and meet a force that learns from every clash. Some Roman commanders, like Verinius in later retellings, are beaten in embarrassing ways, and each defeat becomes a rumor that spreads across Italy. This becomes the Third Servile War, large enough to frighten senators who understand numbers and supply. Rome's fear is not poetry, it is logistics, because a moving rebel army can tear holes in harvests, roads, and tax flows. The rebellion is no longer a local accident. It is a threat that walks, eats, and learns. Spartacus appears to aim north toward the Alps, and that direction feels like freedom to men who dream of home. For many, escape is not a speech about rights, it is distance, a road that leads out of Italy's core. Freedom in that moment is not a flag, it is a direction, and the column moves like weather across towns. Town gates close, villas tighten guards, and slave owners pray because fear turns every shadow into a knife. Free peasants watch quietly, unsure whether to fear the rebels or envy them, because poverty has its own chains. The rebel camp itself is not one mind, and unity is always under stress when food, power, and anger share the same fire. Disagreement becomes fracture. Crixus and many Gauls split away, and Rome catches them with superior coordination and numbers at the right time. Crixus is killed, and Spartacus mourns, then answers grief with something cold and hard, forcing captive Romans into games that reflect the arena back at the Republic. Now Rome stops laughing and turns to Marcus Licinius Crassus, rich, ambitious, and brutally practical. He treats the revolt like a sickness that must be cut out before it spreads into politics and panic. Ancient writers describe harsh discipline and even decimation. Whether every detail is perfect or not, the message is real. Fear becomes a Roman weapon again. Crassus presses the rebels south with forts, patrols, and pressure that never rests as winter bites and food thins and movement becomes risk. Spartacus tries the sea because land is closing, bargaining with Cilician pirates for ships, but they take payment and vanish. Crassus builds trenches and walls across the peninsula like handcuffs made of earth, and desperation breaks out, but time keeps shrinking. In 71 BCE, the decisive battle comes, even if the exact field is debated, because history often remembers outcomes better than maps. Spartacus fights like a man who has accepted the last page. Some accounts say he kills 2 centurions, wounded and still standing. The rebel line collapses under organized weight. Spartacus vanishes into slaughter without an identified body, and afterward thousands are crucified along the Appian Way, so Rome can turn a road into a warning, and the name survives because silence leaves space for legend.